I'm sure you've heard the term scale when used to talk about doll houses, but do you understand what they mean? What do those numbers, 1/12, 1/48, 1 inch, ½ inch, what do they all mean? And how does everything relate to each other? Stay tuned and I'll try to shed some light on just those things. All right, let's start with 1/12 scale because 1/12 scale is, first off, probably the most common of all the dollhouse scales. It's also the easiest to understand the relationship of the size because in 1/12 scale, 1 inch equals 12 inches. That makes it easy. If something is 3 feet tall, it'll be 3 inches tall. It's also called 1 inch scale sometimes. So for 1/12 scale, we have a chair. It's about 3 inches tall. And this is, by the way, this is the size most people I think of when they think of doll houses. We have our Fisher-Price person here. She fits in this chair because she's also 1/12 scale. So what are the advantages of this scale? Well, it's the most common. So it's a little bit easier to find your items that you might want to use. As you can tell from the pizza, we can get decent detail in this scale. If you've watched my videos, the majority of the items I make, whether I say so or not, are 1/12 scale. But there's some disadvantages. Every scale has advantages and disadvantages. The houses for this scale are really large. They can take up a lot of room. So if your real house is small, you might want to think about a smaller scale. Some people, because a lot of kids play with this size, still consider this size to be a toy. So if that bothers you, there's other scales out there. So let's move on and we'll look at another scale. 1/48 scale. By looking at our ratio, we now understand that 1 inch equals 48 inches. This is also called 1/4 inch scale. This one is really popular. Of the smaller scales, I would bet this is probably the most popular. Now we move down in size in our chair. This one's only about 3/4 of an inch tall. So that's a lot smaller. If you compare it to our 1/12 scale, it's really small. So by being smaller, it means we can't really see the detail very much either. It's a lot harder. It's harder to work on because of that too. But there are some big advantages to this, in addition to being really popular. It's also the same size as model railroad O scale. So there's lots and lots of stuff available for the exterior of your house. There's cars and trucks, and you can even get streets. In fact, a friend of mine has an entire street of houses in her living room. She's decorated the inside with 1/48 scale furniture. They're completely decorated, and the outside is a whole street. Let me show you a couple of pictures of what she's done. I really want to thank my friend Fern for providing those pictures. I think it really highlights the beauty of this scale and probably why it is so popular. Now, in all of these scales that we've talked about today, there are some phenomenal artists that work in every scale, and you can get wonderful collector pieces. So no matter what scale you're going to work in, it's there. Now let's talk about a couple of scales that are not specifically maybe dollhouse size, but they're still fun to play with. Now, at the other end of the spectrum here, we can go to 1/6 scale. 1/6, 1 inch equals 6 inches. So it takes 2 inches to equal a foot. If you had a Barbie doll when you were little, you are working in 1/6 scale. There are some collectors that work in 1/6 scale and make some fantastic items. I have to say, it's a lot easier to get detail in this size because it's a lot bigger. But speaking of bigger, it's a lot bigger. There's my 1/12 scale chair next to my 1/6 scale. It takes up a lot more space. So you'd have to have a pretty big room if you were going to put a complete house together. But I've seen it done. One of the big advantages to 1/6 scale is it's easy to get stuff. Go to any toy store or a lot of just stores like Target or Walmart or Kmart, and they have Barbie stuff. Now, a lot of that is plastic and needs a lot of work to make it look collectible, but it can be done. So there are trade-offs in this scale. So it's a fun scale to play with. I've been kind of playing with it a little bit, making some foods and things in this scale, and I'm really enjoying it. Now, I got one more scale I want to talk to you about. All right, now we're going the opposite direction. 1/144 scale. 1 inch equals 144 inches. You might be saying, are you crazy? Why would I want to work that scale? It's really simple. In fact, here's a chair, and here's a pizza. Oh, you can't see it? Now let's see if I can find it see if I can zoom in. Yes, it's really a chair, and it's really a pizza. These are 1/12 scale in your 1/12 scale dollhouse. So this would be the dollhouse toys or the dollhouse stuff for the people living in your dollhouse to be working with. They're just plain cute. That's really the only reason I'm including them here. I actually do make some room boxes in 1/44 scale, and I actually enjoy it. They're hard to work on, but you don't really worry about details in this scale. You imply details, like that pizza. Instead of being made of clay, like my larger pizzas, where's my larger? There it is. This one's made of Fimo. This one is simply a hole punch, an 1/8 inch round hole punch that I colored with some colored pencils. That's all there is to that pizza. So it's just kind of fun to work on. I will probably present a 1/44 scale project later on this year, but I wanted to include it in this video. So those are the scales. We can go all the way from 1/6 through 1/12, 1/24, 1/48, and for the truly brave or crazy, 1/44 scale. So I hope this sheds some light on some of the mystery of scale, and there'll be another video coming later on talking to you about how you figure out what size to make your items in your chosen scale. So I'll talk to you later. Bye.